Hello, hello. Happy Monday, everyone. Oh my gosh, I am so happy to be here. I have not come live. I can't even recall how long it has been. Thank you, Chrissy, for being here. I was just commenting, it has been probably even more than 8 months that I have actually come here live. Marta, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. This is such an important live for me. I'm actually going to invite my guest to come in and we can actually get things going. I really, really, truly appreciate that you're here. Thank you, Marta, for all the love, Chrissy. And there is Jorge, my brother. Hello.
So
Welcome.
beautiful.
I hope that we have good connection, and I just want to welcome you, Jorge. I know we're going to wait a little bit to some people to come in. Vero's here, Martha's here, Chris is here, and a lot of our audience might catch this audio later. But before you even start, let me just do a little introduction and share with the audience, whether it's now or later. Thank you, Majito, for being here. The importance of this live, I know for both of us, but I also know that for everyone that comes here to hear this particular live. Why? Because as you know, Jorge, and all the people that are joining, that I'm just going to say a recognition and I thank you now, because if I stop and greet every single one of us, we'll lose the intention, the vibration of this particular live. I really had to make a point to center myself and give my heart unconditionally, like I always do. But today is even greater. So I know that everyone that is joining us has had, or at least knows, or has lived a past family trauma. And while trauma can be lived in all kinds of relationships, today's live is really about healing the family trauma, because this is your immediate tribe. This is your immediate, family story that haunts you or helps you. Haunts you or helps you for the rest of your life. And we get to decide which of the two we want. And you and I mean, for those that don't know me, thank you for everyone coming in. I am actually 50, and it is only at 50 that I have built, and I'm going to say because I'm going to take full ownership of my part, have now recognized the beautiful being that Source brought me to my life, which is this brother. He's actually my half brother. We have the same mother and different father. And Jorge, how old are you now?
I'm going to be 43.
Oh my God, 43. So, I don't even know, and I don't have an expectation of how to start this, Jorge, but I really believe that before we connect with our audience, I would like for us to share how important it is for this moment, for the both of us, and for everybody that is joining in to see this. Thank you, Shalini, for being here. And Jorge's in Costa Rica, and I'm in Merida, Mexico, so the ocean is between us.
Not really.
But so please, Jorge, introduce yourself and just share why you're here, basically, and how important this is to you and for the message that we are going to transmit to the world.
Well, first of all, I want to start by saying that this is very meaningful to me. I think everything in life needs context. And what I would like to put is that you and I, although growing up for my entire life, glued to one another, the space that was between us was immense. Even though we were 5-6 steps away from our rooms, there was an ocean literally between, right? And to watch you go over the past few years through the path that you've been through, touching the lives of people and doing what you've been doing, it's very meaningful to me. And I almost want to cry. I might cry, just so everybody knows. And yeah, man, having you back in my life is something I've always dreamed of. And it's very meaningful, and I'm so excited and so happy that we get to live it together, even though it's near our 50s.
Well, we really hope we can get through this making sense, because emotions are at its core. Thank you for sharing your works. Thank you for being here. You know, guys, generational patterns and trauma can get in the way of your upbringing in such a way that you can live with so much loneliness, that you can really deviate from those that love you. And Jorge and I, for whatever reason, I guess yes, for sure, our past trauma, our limited beliefs, our fears. We both grew up with so much fear, even though we had the same household and the same mother. We each were seeing life in a different perspective. And when I tell you there was zero dialogue among us until this year, where I completely decided to take over this new.
Exactly 16 years we didn't.
Imagine that. And some of that time we didn't even speak to each other. And when I came into this 50th world and I thought, enough, I have healed every aspect of my life, I continue to share the truth and study and be vulnerable and humble and really restore my heart, there was that one aspect that was missing, that was you. And I don't really even recall the exact moment. I don't know if you want to share. I mean, what was that aha moment where we're like, felt that synergy, that energy, that connection, that we said, okay, this is the beginning, and that we will never let go?
I don't know when it was necessarily. To me, what I could tell you, it was always a position of hope, right? Every time we get together, it would take us about 2 minutes to be on each other's throat and wanting to. I couldn't stand you. You hated what I presented. I was annoyed with your vision of life. And I think the most important, what so as you go through the process of self-awareness and growth and consciousness and everything, you have to start realizing that a lot of times it's not even the other person that's there that bothers you. It's the image that you've created of that person in your mind that doesn't even allow you to have a deep conversation, to have but I also believe that, I don't know, I'm you've sped through this in the past like 4 years, from zero consciousness to 150, right? For me, it's been 15 years of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we were just in different levels of consciousness, and well, you know it better than anybody right now, right? I'm coming out of a very traumatic relationship experience, and the person might be a great person, but if you're at different levels of self-awareness and consciousness, you can't have the conversations that are going to build that bond, right? So to me, it was just one day you you walked like a different person, you talked like a different person, you were open, you were available, and you didn't have that anger towards me that I felt all the time. And I was like, all right, we might be onto something. I might have my sister back. And lo and behold, you were open to conversation. You were open to, trying to understand, because I couldn't make sense, because I was always like, well, why is she this way? Like, I've never done anything to her to be this mad at me. Like, why is this happening? So I was just like, fuck it. You don't want to talk to me? Fine. Sorry for the beautiful language.
Yes,
But
and I wanna step in a very important word you use. I was angry at you, and another point that you touched, I probably wasn't angry at you. I was angry at the person you reminded me of. And I'm gonna be touching really deep stuff here, so bear with me with my tears, because it's really just been recent that I've spoken to my brother about this. So I grew up in silence and in pain and in anger, because Jorge's father abused myself and a couple of other family members sexually. And, I truly believe that still there's so much trauma around anyone who has suffered sexual abuse. But now, thank goodness, people are being more open to talk about it. But I was in complete silence until not too long ago. And when I started this healing work, I realized, Jorge, and I apologized to you in public, that you look like him. You dress like him when you hit that cowboy view that you always love. Your voice is so similar. And I just had a reflection of that experience embedded in you. So that was my own trauma that I was putting on you. And you didn't know what had happened until not too long ago either. So the fact for me to get out of my pain, drama, and pain, to go into your heart, to understand what you would have lived, knowing that you're a hero, because this man was pretty much, somebody who you adored, you followed. He was your hero. And to find out that your own father literally destroyed our childhood, I can't even imagine the trauma behind it.
It's tough. So here's what happens in that situation, right? Like, wow, I'm really gonna cry. So you grow up with this person, right? That when you're a child, everything, right? It's a powerhouse. It's everything you see as a kid. He's a, wealthy dude, amazing politician. Everybody adores and reveres and everything. But it doesn't take too long. I mean, again, you have to constantly be putting yourself in other people's positions and be observant of what. So the that old easy saying that people say about you have to look at people's actions and not words. It sounds very simple and so old and so whatever, but like for example, I'm living it now. I don't know if I'm ready to publicly speak about what happened or how I found out, but the reality is early on in my age, there's two roads a man or a boy takes when you're living, right? You either want to be like your dad, or as you grow, you want to be everything but like your dad, right? And so there's a shift when you're a kid and you're like, oh wow, the planes, the this, the wealth, the everything. And you're like, wow, that's my hero. But then you grow to a point where your emotions start kicking in, start feeling empty, and you start feeling alone, and you realize that they're just doing this for the outside, not for the inside. There's no emotional attachment. So that image starts to fade a little bit with time. And so for me, although it might have not seemed that way because of my lack of emotional control at the time, I always kind of like understood how the people really close to him were the ones suffering more. Because that's what happens with a narcissist disorder, right? A narcissist disorder, and we grew up in a household that had both parents with a narcissist disorder, right? So it was very hard and it was very lonely emotionally. And the fact that we didn't have each other was even more so, right? Because you remember I grew up as a bullied kid. It was a mess, right, emotionally. And that's why I was so attached to Arturo, our other brother, your other half brother, and my half brother. But because it was the only person I could talk to, and it was the only person that I could open my heart to, and it was the only person that was there. So the shift happens when you start actually listening. This is it doesn't make much sense. Start listening to people's actions instead of their words is when you start realizing this is probably not the route. And that's when you start changing. And that's when you start, you have two choices. You cover it and you just shove it down the bucket, and eventually it's going to come out and bite you in the ass. Or you start healing and you go to therapy, which I think it should be on everybody's freaking practice. And you start crawling out of the hole. And that crawling out of the hole made me understand you a little bit more. You were my first true test of empathy. in my growth path. I was already 32 when this happened, right? When one day we were in Misquiahuala, our weekend family home, and I could see suffering, right? And that's the one day that I was like, oh, look at that. She's not mad at you, man. She's suffering inside. And that meant me, I started loving you differently.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable to share with our audience this. It's really, we're going to give you tools to that you can actually somehow will make sense of all the story, but we wanted to just come raw and share this because it is only until you acknowledge where the root cause of all this. And now that there's so much more openness to talk about, you know, hey, I dislike my mother, my father, I was sexually abused, and be okay talking about it, because unfortunately it's a thing now. I mean, I'm telling you, even with clients and the people I meet in the streets doing service work, it's everywhere, and it happens in your immediate family. People think, oh no, I'm not gonna, it was my case. My mother would say, you will never sleep in anybody's home. I was like, please, my best friend, no, if they have brothers, if there's a father, you're not going. But little did she know that all of this was going on in her own home. But the shift happens to all our audience. Please take a note of this, that you also understand where your parents' upbringing is from. You know, our mother, for those that just joined, we have the same mother and different father. Our mother, knowing her story, and it was only until I really spoke with Jorge deeply about, like, where does our mother come from? This is a mother who's born when her dad was 65 and the mother was 45. She was an only child, and her father was her absolute hero. And at 12 years old, at 12, can you imagine at 12, her own mother dies in her home and watches her die. So go through all that when you're 12. 6 months later, our grandfather died also in the home. But this time, this mother who now didn't have a mother, now she had a dead father next to her. 6 months later, from one death to the other, she decides to stay with her dead father in her own home for a couple of days because she didn't want to call for help. She didn't want anybody to take him away. I mean, this is the root of our upbringing. She was always a warrior, and it's great. It hurts me to even say was, because, you know, our mother's still alive, but she's going through memory loss and has lost her will to live, and has lost her spark, her genuinity, her endless way of living life for others. And it's very hurtful to watch how that whole process is going, which, a pause on that story, I truly believe is because she never did inner work. She never did any healing. She never spoke about it to anyone. And this is now she's like,
and again, we have to understand, she is a serial narcissist, right? So when you're a narcissist, people usually have the idea of a narcissist being about their image, about, like in the episode tales, right? No, but a narcissist is a person that is never wrong, that it's never their fault, that it's always someone else, because for them, the image that the avatar that they have created themselves to be, in which they live in, has to be right? So there's no option for vulnerability, right? There's no option for, hey, I was wrong. There's no option, because so where I'm going with this is, it took us to understand the reason why there was no emotional connection with us, or in life, or whatsoever, that wasn't how the world saw her, was because she didn't know better, right? She was a 12-year-old orphan. She started hitting the streets. She went from foster home to foster home. And so in her mind, Okay, so I'm gonna use an example because this is recent for me, right? Since we're opening fucking cans of worms here. Sorry, I don't know why I speak like that. I'm so sorry. Um, so right now in the relationship that I just passed in, when you're constantly fighting and you're trying to struggle and you're trying to get there and everything, you eventually get to a point where you have to become a version of yourself that you can still be out there but survive inside. So that's what she did. She became a version of herself that was kind of out there, but she could survive. And her survival, it was too painful to go inside. There's points in our life. Imagine you and I, we grew up extremely privileged. Extreme, right? People would be like, oh, poor little rich kids, freaking whatever, with their emotional problems. But more often than so, that kind of upbringing brings emotional baggage that's immense, right? So when you try to understand where people are coming from, when you try to see the context of their life, it makes it easier to be like, you know what, they didn't know better. And so that allows you to forgive, that allows you to work, that allows you to connect. And I think if we're talking about relationships with family members, it's that's the only route. You have to love the other person and understand their journey and love their journey and be there for their journey. But then again, we're not freaking Dalai Lama, right? Who says that when you say things that hurt me, it takes a lot to get to a point where they're not going to piss me off, right? It happens in our relationships, it happens in our family, it happens at our work, it happens. So getting to that Zen level of, oh, when you're mad, it's not me, it's you dealing with it wrongly. It's a journey. It's a different journey that takes a lot of time.
Absolutely. And it's a journey that is worth it. We want to really encourage everyone that is hearing this. And if this is contribution, please do share away. I know some people just came in. It is worth to hear the beginning of this live because there's no more need to hold on this trauma. There's no more need to be suffering and just be sharing with your loved ones, with your friends, or, you know, especially holidays are coming by. Christmas, oh my God. So during the whole year, everybody hates each other and they can't see each other. But here's a holiday that you have to pretend even more. And we decide to put 17 masks on to just, you know, be grounded in these special family events that you're forced by tradition and culture. What to do, who to think, who to pray, who to believe, what to do, what makes you successful, what doesn't. And it comes a time in your life where you have to say, stop, basta, no more, right? And when you really start doing the inner work for yourself, understanding my pain was so embedded, was part of my skin for not speaking about my relationship, the lack of relationship with my mother. I was mad at her. Why did she not see what was going on in her own home? Why was she not there to tell me when I had my first period and I didn't even know what that meant? She never to talk about any relationships of my own.
Well,
But yet she, huh?
Funny story is my mom came and talked to me about sex when I was like 21. There was no, but then again, right? They didn't, it wasn't a priority for them. Their priority was keeping up with the Jones. Their priority was being this or that. So I guess it sounds very, you know, but yeah, when you have to work so hard on seeing the other person's perspective, right? And trying to understand where they were standing. And like, for example, with my mom, I don't have the relationship you have, but it took me until, so when I was like 35, I had a conversation with her because she was always like, world obeys me, you guys have to do what I say or whatever. I remember when I left the house, she said, if you leave this house, you can forget about me and, you know, the inheritance. It was a thing. Remember that episode? And in that moment, to me, it was like, I can't believe that at this point, your son is leaving your home and all you can threaten him with is money. It doesn't matter to you that your son actually live with you. You don't have the humbleness. Hey, wait, what are you doing? Let's talk about this. Let's change some things. Let's rescue this, right? Long and behold, up until recently, that pattern sticks with you. I, for the better half of my life, found myself before healing, which I am yet, and it's a process, getting into relationships that would threaten me, that would trigger me, that would push me. And the reason is because I thought that was what love was about. Because if that's the love that you get from your mother, that must be the love that you should get, right? It only makes sense. And then one day someone comes and writes you a letter that is amazing and that they say the most beautiful things anyone's ever told you. And you're like, oh, wait, there's other ways of loving. And so that makes you more empathic about the person that is hurting, and it allows you to let them go. So where I was going, the conversation I had with my mom, one day she was like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do this. And I was like, Mom, which I encourage everybody to have this conversation, which is a little bit the conversation that you and I had one day. I was like, Mom, I think you have to stop talking to me about my life and what you think, because you're no longer entitled to tell me anything. I gave up that in order for us not to fight and hate each other all the time. I just want to love you because I love you because you're my mom. There's nothing else that you can get from me other than unconditional love because you're my mom. Because at some point, even though, and this isn't, you and I chose to heal because you chose the path of consciousness and I chose the path of consciousness, and we hug each other's hearts now every time we talk. But if you're talking to a person that doesn't want to hug your heart because they haven't even hugged their own, you have to at some point be like, you know what? I love you, but you're going to have to stay in this shelf, which is of the people that I don't bounce with. And I'm just going to love that shelf. And you're not going to affect me anymore, but we're never going to get there.
And that's exactly where I was actually with our own relationship. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I want to say maybe it was 2 years ago where
Great.
I had the most peaceful conversation. And guys, this is a great part of the healing process, setting healthy boundaries. And I remember, like if it was yesterday, this conversation, it was about 2 years ago where I saw him and I said, Jorge, you know, I love you, but I love myself more. And you cannot stand me. I cannot stand you. We need to have a healthy space between us and work on ourselves. And time will tell, and I'll see you on the other side. And I actually ended by saying, if there's anything you need in that silence, whether it's like my blood, an organ, something, I want you to know that I'd be the first one there.
I think we should ever be in touch again because we hurt each other so much. That said, if you ever need a blood transfusion from me or any part of my body, you can count on it. It's exactly what you said.
Exactly. So part of this journey is putting that pause, and that pause gave us that strength to work on ourselves, because our last fight, which was public, we had people over and it was so dramatic. It took so much of both of us, and we understood that we needed to put pause in this. So this live, I mean, it's probably worth like going in modules. These lives, by the way, if you're new to this, I usually do them for 15 minutes. I have no time restriction on this one because I've waited my entire life for this moment, and we want to share it with you. And then people, I know they're busy, so we want to make sure we can capsulate all this knowledge so people do have the time to hear it. So I'm actually going to kind of debrief and bring out some points, and of course, Jorge, feel free to add them so they can take tangible tools and ideas of how to work through this process. So first of all, I would point out it's like a self-recognition of where you are in your path of consciousness or unconsciousness. Don't even label it. Where you are. What is it that you are seeking that you're not having, but with yourself first, so that you can open up to other relationships? That is what I would point as number one. And I'll finish more or less what comes down to my spirit, and then you can feel free to add any more. So the other one, you want to be able to seek the truth. your story, your family history, just like Jorge and I, shared what his father and
Over there.
what he did and all that, and our mother, we understood the base of all that, and we even understood the path of so much deep hurt and pain we both grew up in the same family, the same household, the trauma in different levels, completely different perspectives of that pain and hurt because where he was living and where I was living. And then you want to also, number 3, recognize that trauma and that pain. Understand it. Where is it coming from so that you can do something about it, okay? The next step that I would actually recommend, and I'll make a post about this, go inwards. It's the flashlight towards you, not to the other. Not my brother is making my life miserable. Not my mother is this and that. Everything that you call to others is something that you need to work on. When you hear your voice saying you are whatever, you are the cause, it's all you. I hate to say it, but it is. And until you understand that.
If you don't mind, because this is like, so what I think is, I'm gonna add a layer. Sometimes it's not you. You can choose how you react or how you take stuff, but people are hurting you a lot, and like what happened to you, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. You were a victim of a freaking monster. And on the other hand, imagine the feeling of finding out that your dad was capable of doing that to the people you love the most. It wasn't me. How we deal with situations is a very hard choice, but it's a choice, right? And it 90% of the times when you're talking about family trauma or family bonds or family relationships, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I hate it when I don't hate it, but I find it misleading that sometimes people are like, oh, you got to choose to deal with this in a different way, and you got to choose. No, dude, I'm fucking dying over here. Sorry, I'm dying over here, and so no, you're entitled to be sad. You're entitled to be down, but yes, on the other hand, understand that whoever is choosing to hurt you is them, but you are allowed to be hurt, and then you can decide what to do with that. Uh,
Yeah,
it's on.
I understand where you're going from. I want to clarify the point. It's basically owning that you decide to accept that hurt or not. That's
Yeah,
why it's that responsibility that we chose to latch on to those hurts and pains and limited beliefs.
right.
When you are completely whole, or we're working on it daily, you and I mean, right now, anyone can tell me. In fact, I just had a situation last night where somebody said horrible things about me. I know I am not that. And now I've gone from like, oh my God, who is this person? Got to find out whatever, to blessing that person and sending them love. Because humans, by source, by way of gift, by being alive, when we come to this earth, we are whole. We are, our heart is untouched. It's the messed up journey. So let me go back in those points because we really have to shorten this. I know there's so much to talk. So we've talked about certain points. Let me see if I can recall them. So it's a self-recognition. They're seeking the family history and all your upbringing, your stories, recognize the trauma and the emotions behind it. We want to also understand the importance of putting healthy boundaries and seeking for help. It doesn't make you weak to seek for help. Help is needed. And to be honest, I've gone through all the different modalities of self-care and healing and services that are out there. I truly believe, not because I'm a coach, but coaching is amazing. For me, it was like a match of being heard and guided, but through my own processes. So whatever works for you, do it. But I'm just saying that for me, it was like an eye opener. And we want to also recommend to you to do the work. It's like going to the gym. You build a muscle for that. You're doing a discipline. The working on self-healing is another one. Another aspect that is as important as your outer body. We want you to also understand the importance of opening your heart with no filters. Jorge and I have cried our eyes out for the last 2 months, literally. And we are here now sharing our truth. So that's another aspect to remember, to connect and forgive. The forgiveness is a gift to yourself, not that for the other person. You live liberated. In fact, I've done the inner work with his father, that even though he's passed, I did my own way. I wrote him a letter. I've spoken to my spiritual teachers about it, and it's a past story, because now I can speak about it, and I can be of so much help and love and understanding to all the people that have lived sexual abuse in their own home as a child. I mean, and you have girls now, Jorge, so you can understand the trauma behind it. And lastly, but not as important as the first one, is to be able to share the light and wisdom once you hit the aha moment. And for this, we want to thank every one of you for listening to this, and for those that will hear it, or if you find it, that some family member could be of use to hear this, please share the love, because it is time to be vulnerable. It is time to just open your heart so that we can be a source of creation and healing for each other. And Jorge, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to be, for being here, for opening. Wow, I feel like 20 pounds lighter of being able to share our story. I really, perhaps we could do another live where we can answer questions and just open it, not showing so much information. Now the data's there, everybody can process in their own way. We just want to encourage you to take action now. Your peace, your love, your worth is not dependent upon anyone else's pain. Just heal, and healing is in the tip of your hands. Healing is accessible to everyone. Start with practices of mindfulness, walking, connecting with yourself. It's someone that had never been by yourself. I couldn't go get a freaking glass of water in my own home. I lived by myself for most of my life. I've traveled the world not knowing anyone, because I am letting my heart lead me. And your love, Jorge, has brought me to heal. That one last aspect I can say while looking in your eyes and in your heart, that you are my last puzzle piece to amending my heart. So thank you so much.
So much. I think it's important that we share with people, as you say, right? Taking action, and again, but I think also the empathy, because the other person that you're trying to heal with, like, let's say whoever's out there that is your audience, the other person might not be ready, right? So it's important. You need to have the conversation, but it has to start. I have a saying that I always tell people that work for me or with me. It's always better to be interested than interesting. So when you sit down with this person that you want to heal, either if it's family or not, whoever is important in you, it's like, just be curious and be like, hey, dude, why is this happening to us? Why do I feel like you don't like me? Why can't we get along? And then once you give people the space to be vulnerable, with them not feeling like they're going to be judged or feeling like they're going to be shut down or anything like that, it's not going to be in the first conversation. It's not going to be in the second one. It's not going to be in the 10th one. You both have to get to a place where you're going to feel safe of like, all right, I can tell this person anything and we'll still be fine. Right? So it's because I don't want people to be like, oh, all right, I went to talk to my brother and he told me to piss off, and then screw it, we're done. No, he's going to tell you to piss off 10 times until you can, without reacting. Because there's a saying that people always, like, when they react, it's justified. It's like, oh, no, it's something you did. No. Your reaction was on you, right? So if they tell you, hey, I don't want to talk about this, piss off, I hate you, da, 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 be like, okay, maybe another time. And then you come back. And then you come back at it again until one day it's like, dude, listen, I love you. I miss you. Open your heart when you're trying to get there. Don't go there with why is this happening to us? Why are you being this way? It's like, no, just start with sharing. Like, hey, you know what? Not having you in my life, like I told you one day, not having you in my life has been very painful. Very painful. What do we have to do to fix that?
Absolutely. What a what a beautiful way to wrap up. In fact, I'm going to integrate all this wisdom just even in 1.5 minutes with our audience. I like to open up in some sort of integration or close. So I know you're not used to doing a live with me, but here, bear with me, Jorge. Yeah, thank you for being here, my love. So I just want to ask anybody who is here, who will hear it later, to just take this moment to integrate everything that has been shared in this live, and knowing and owning that all your pain and trauma is past, and that it's in your fingertips and in the openness of your heart to be able to live with full grace and attitude of joy, of love, of empowerment and healing in your own journey and the journey of others. Those that come into your life are those people that are a reflection of you. So just integrate all the love, oneness, and wisdom that is shared with you on this live, and know that your story is important to us. If we could be of service to you in any way, if we can bring any warmth and nurturing to your soul, we are here for you. I know you can inbox my own brother. He would be happy to share any knowledge on his perspective. It's Jorge Ropesa, and you know my ways of communicating with me. Just want to leave by saying we love you, we believe in you, and we know that you are ready to do your own self-healing, and in doing so, heal all your generational patterns. And so it is. We let go and let God flow in through your day. And until next time. Gracias, Jorge. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Love you.